Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Astrology Today with Jeff Harmon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ella, and I am super excited about this episode because Jeff is going to be addressing a number of your questions, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going to do my best, you bet.
And we're also going to address the fact that we are having a new moon. We had a new moon.
Yes, we are.
At 2:58. Our time, West Coast time.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff, you're going to take a look at that and just talk about the new moon.
Yeah. The new moon was in, for the tropical astrologers, it was in Sagittarius, and it's actually a good new moon. You always look at the next aspect the moon makes after it conjuncts the sun. And what's it doing? Well, it's going to conjunct Venus and it's going to conjunct Mercury. So that's always a good omen. And it's kind of nice for the Thanksgiving holiday that, we got a little bit of better energy than we've been seeing for a while. So, there's all these horrible shootings and, crazy stuff that's been going on, but this should actually make it a little bit nice this month. Not that there won't be events happening, but usually it's really a good idea if you look in your birth chart and see where the new moon happens. It's always going to happen in a certain house. And of course, in Vedic astrology, it'll be 24 degrees back. And this moon was actually in a lunar mansion called Anuruddha. So it's actually pretty good. I like it. This new moon, the fact that it leaves the sun and conjuncts Venus and Mercury should be a nice Thanksgiving, at least. Let's hope nobody else does anything crazy in the meantime, right?
Yeah.
But it's always good. I always pay attention every month to the house that one of my clients' moons are in. Any of the clients I do readings for, I'm always paying attention, like where is planets retrograde in their houses? Also, in what house does the new moon happen? Because it does. New moons every month are kind of like a rebirth, a reset. The sun and the moon are the seed. And they really are. They tend to, do a really kind of a new energy into the world. In fact, one of the things that the old ancient religions would study is they would do a meditation on the new moon. Mm-hmm. A lot of people would light a candle, they do a meditation right when it hit, and then they would make a wish. It's kind of like your little birthday for the month. So it's kind of fun.
Well, we both do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love doing a little meditation right on the moon. It's really, really powerful. And, there's different schools of thought on that. In the Hebrew religion, they do it within, 72 hours of the new moon. So, it's really, really powerful. So there's all kinds of theories, but I like doing it right on the new moon because the energy is powerful. And if you're tuned into it, you can really feel the shift.
You really can feel it. Yeah. You really can feel it. And you can also feel the power of your prayer or your intention. Mm-hmm. I definitely feel that. It's very, very invigorating. I like it.
Sure is.
I like it. I can feel that energy that you were just speaking about. I can feel it.
You bet. You can really feel the energy of a new moon. Most of us are oblivious to it. We don't really pay attention to these energies, but it's really kind of fun to watch it because you can really. We used to sit there in restaurants and like schools of fish, you would see people moving in and out right when the signs would change. And oftentimes I would find that, certain days when the moon was conjuncting Saturn, everybody's morose and going down the street, getting where they're going, or moon conjuncting Mars. But when it's trining Venus, everybody's happy and looking and shopping, or whatever it is that you're doing. If you're in a rural place, you'll find it's just really a wonderful energy when the moon conjuncts benefics. So that's what's good about this new moon. It's conjuncting Venus and then it's translating light to Mercury. So it's good.
That's really good. That's really good news. I think we all need to hear some good news.
Yeah. You got that right.
Absolutely. So do you want to address our first question?
Sure. Why not? Let's see, where we can go with it.
So the first question we have, Jeff, the stock market is more tense than it has ever been. Can you provide any insight if you have knowledge on that subject?
Yeah, well, I'm going to put up my chart. So if I'm not looking right at the camera, that's why. Yeah, I did look at that. And, I would say this, that, the stock market's been pretty intense throughout history. I mean, it's not like 1929, where everybody's, running on the bank and all that. But it's interesting. this chart actually shows, even though I think the owners at the top of the pyramid are in kind of a war, we're seeing one faction wants to bankrupt the country, stop the fossil and petrochemical, energy systems and deplete and raise up the cost of everything. And that's what I think is going to happen ultimately if they don't stop it. But the markets themselves, from what I can see in the astrology, I'm actually looking at the chart right now, they're going to keep it going. And, one person asked also about the cryptos. And I think they're not going to let this all crash. In fact, I've been talking to a lot of people in different countries, and the dollar is strong right now, which is very powerful. And it's also kind of strange that they're doing that because it actually depletes the U.S. buying power from foreign nations to us. Of course, it's really good for us to foreign nations, but it looks to me like they're going to keep the game going is what it shows. They're going to keep the game going. In fact, there's something known as the plunge protection team inside of the Fed that literally stops the markets. They literally stop it from plunging and failing. So it's kind of a nickname. And that's somewhat of a well-known term in certain circles. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. So, I think they're going to keep it going, even though I think the economy is in big trouble long term, but they're going to keep the markets still rolling.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're already feeling it, right? We are definitely in a recession already. Clearly we're in a recession. You're absolutely right. And I think it's going to deepen too. All your economists are saying the same thing. How could it not? I mean, they're also talking about a train strike right now. And if they're leaving and the unions kind of broke off and now they're going to leave it up to Congress. I mean, if you stop trains in this country, it'll be a delayed effect, but it'll be a catastrophic effect. So I'll bet that they won't let something like that go on too long. Right.
But many of the workers are complaining, they're just being worked to death. They're not giving enough free time, all of that. The biggest danger, though, is the diesel fuel. If diesel fuel is not kept in good supply, we're in big trouble because you stop the trucking industry and the trains, you're in big trouble. The problem with the train industry is a lot of diesel fuel, the bulk of it gets pulled from refineries to many dispensaries in local areas through trains. Trains are the most economical way to transport things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But just going back to the stock market question for a second, I'm sure people are wondering about investing in the market. And I know that that's really hard to see because it does fluctuate so much, especially at this time. I know people are concerned about that.
Well, you bet. And the problem with that is I've actually over the years worked with a lot of traders in commodities. I worked with them in various different investment areas where we've used interrogation astrology. It's actually been pretty doggone effective. The problem is, in fact, we did one thing that was really cool one time. I used to be taking, it was actually a number of times, we would take the IPOs, the initial public offering of a company, and we would progress the chart using solar arcs. And you could always invariably see if the company was likely to see a great gain at certain points in its existence. It was pretty accurate. In fact, I still get people that ask me to do stuff like that. I can't give financial advice, but I can tell you what the energy says. So the problem with investing in the stock market is so complex because you could be looking at so many different types of stocks.
Right.
Technology comes up to be pretty good right now. Technology and for some reason, military might be good too. Defense industry. Yeah, how about that? Defense industry comes up good too. But I would say that, technology,
even within that, though, there are so many different stocks within that. So
you bet. And I've seen, a lot of that too. That's where it's good to really check your own chart and get a reading, because I find some people, they just have the Midas touch, and oftentimes it'll fail on them after a certain time. And a lot of times when your transits and progressions are difficult, it's pretty hard to make investments that seem to work. So, and I find other times when you're hot, you got really good transits and progressions. So it really comes down to that.
It comes down to the individual. Yeah.
It's a lot of it. Yes. Plus you got to blend that with the mundane, but yeah, stock, investing is really dangerous. There's no question. Right now it's a roller coaster ride. And I think it's going to continue to be a roller coaster ride. Mm-hmm. I think as we get into next year, one of the biggest things that concerns me is the United States, and I've been mentioning this for a long time, has the sidereal Neptune square Mars. Okay. And people say, well, what does that mean? Well, that's clearly where a lot of trickery and subterfuge is going on. I mean, it's pretty transparent what's happening. They just keep driving up the debt. They are also driving up the cost of energy with all this stuff that they're doing with the Green New Deal. And the more they continue to do that, the more inflation is going to rise. Now, right now, it's kept a little bit low. Actually, fuel prices are down, but what are they doing? They're depleting the reserves. And there's no new oil and gas leases. So hopefully the chart on the United States is right, that come January, we're really going to see a shift where, some things will start to happen that are much better.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. And complex stuff.
Yeah. Very complex. Yep. So our second question is any thoughts based on the math on states succeeding from the Union before 2032?
Well, that's a good question. And I remember someone had asked that. I get not likely. And I'm looking at that chart right now. You can't see it on the screen, but not too likely. Before 2032. There's been a lot of talk of that, where California was talking about doing that. Mm-hmm. Other states were talking about doing that. But it looks like the poll here is to not have that happen. That's what it leans towards.
Interesting. That's a really good question, though. I'm glad
it's a great question.
Through. Really great question. Important question. So the chart shows it's not likely.
It's not likely, no. And, it's interesting. I do like that question because I think their next they've already made a major move. A lot of people have been talking about Nasara. They've been talking about the Great Reset. Yeah. And of course, there's a lot of really good videos out there. I don't want to get our YouTube channel canceled, but there's been a lot of stuff out there about the new one world order trying to implement their agendas. And is that true? I actually think it is. Again, for years, I've been saying to people, forget about the Mayan calendar, because the end of the world isn't coming, and Nibiru. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but my big thing on the radar screen has always been 2020. And I think it's been right. Not that I've been right, but the chart has been right. And that's the key, because we had two major things in 2020. And I repeat them constantly. One was the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. That's what brought us COVID, this whole global tyranny came in. And, COVID was COVID, but that's also an aspect of fascism. And we have seen outright fascism. And, they weaponized the health industries, and a lot of very questionable things have happened ever since then. And it's still going on. Secondly, I talked about the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, which is different. Those were actually the ancient markers of when the real pages turned. And that happened on the winter solstice of 2020, almost exactly 2 years ago. So next month, it'll be exactly 2 years. And what have we seen? We have seen censorship. We have seen so much stuff going on in society, literally fascism and high tech being used jointly together in a lot of very eerie ways. There's been a lot of talk here about things that are going on with many different things in the sky, chemtrails, all this, other things I don't want to mention, will get canceled. But the bottom line is, we got a Rumble channel. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But the bottom line is, it's clearly been an age of fascism. And what I'm really keeping my eye on, and this relates to, are any states going to succeed from the Union? I think that they're going to pull some real fast willies on us as the Neptune square Mars completes in the sidereal zodiac. And mind you, I've also been mentioning we have a Pluto return going on in the tropical system, but it kicks in 2024. We're going to see this election year is going to be an election year that's going to be quite stunning. I'm actually putting this up right now because I want to be accurate here. When I look at in fact, I'll share the screen here just momentarily.
Great.
Because I think it's a good idea to show people. This is a graphic ephemeris here that I'm putting up, which essentially allows us to see the final Neptune square Mars. The first one happened this May of 2022, came back again in the fall, and the final hurrah is right here, March of 2023. Now, people might say, okay, great, Jeff, what does it mean? Well, again, the simplest term is subterfuge. It really is. This is where people tell you something and it's exactly the opposite. It's the Orwellian blow smoke in your face or up your rear end, whichever you like. But the bottom line is this is really an energy that's pretty trickery, or you could say it's very, very it's out and out lying. It really
very
is.
Deceptive.
Very deceptive. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. So yeah, when I look at this, you can actually see on the screen here, literally that it's March, about 7th and give or take, we don't need to hang on the exact day, but that's when it really completes. Mind you, in 1861, the Civil War broke out. Now, I'm not saying we're going to have a civil war, but the Civil War broke out right after that when this same series happened 180 years ago. See, Neptune takes 180 years to go around the chart. So it's a very extremely powerful energy. There's no question about it. And then the Pluto return kicks in here starting right in the February of 2024, comes back again in July of 2024, and the final hurrah is right literally at the end of the year, about the 29th or 30th of 2024. You can see if you kind of zoom in there. So very powerful energies. This is never, ever, ever happened on the United States ever before, because it is a 240-year cycle where essentially, it's all about transformation. Again, Pluto is the destroyer. It literally burns the structures of society down, and the phoenix rises up out of the ashes. So, Pluto is brutal. And I think we've seen that, there's a lot of people very unhappy with the way the world is right now, particularly in this country, as the border is stampeded, the, crime and the governors and the district attorneys just keep letting things happen. So this is no trivial thing. This is huge, absolutely huge. Yeah.
Well, again, we've mentioned it on the past few podcasts that we do have some good energies coming in January. So, hopefully that will be a little bit of a saving grace.
Well, it starts in January. See, you got to remember that's a 12-year progression.
Right.
So that's when it begins.
Yep. Okay. So the next and last question is very, very different. We're making a big shift here now.
All right.
Is there a practice of timing caesareans to accord with desired astrology? I love this question. Thank you so much for it.
Yeah, that's a really cool question. There is. In fact, I don't need to cast a chart for that one. For years, I really had the honor of working with different women and husbands too, to conceive. And they're called conception elections. And essentially, you take the woman's chart and you look at the 13 new moons per year, they're called lunations, and you pick the best one. And I always start with looking at the chart overall. Is she in a baby making cycle? So one of the best stories I have to tell about that, there was a lady who was 51 years old. This was almost 15 years ago now, might even be 16 years ago. And she said, Jeff, I know I'm 51, but I want to conceive. And I said, well, it's a good idea. You definitely talk to a doctor. And she goes, oh, my doctor wants to work with you on the astrology. I thought, wow, that's really cool. So what I did is the doctor was agreeable to do the insemination of her husband's sperm on a good day to the astrology. And, he was a really cool doctor. And I find a lot of doctors are open to that. A lot of them aren't. So the bottom line was I got to pick the day, which was really awesome. Yeah. And she conceived. And at 51 years old, she had that child, carried it to full term. In other words, it wasn't in a test tube. She had it in her womb. Wow. And the child was born, no Down syndrome, no troubles, totally healthy. And I believe now is somewhere between 15 and 16 years old. The last report I heard, he was doing great. It was absolutely wonderful. So it's, there's some sad times when I see, it's not going to be easy for certain people to conceive. And, modern allopathic medicine has made some great headways with fertility drugs and, all that. But, today I think people are having children older. I know I did. My son, much older. I mean, I was in my 40s when I had my son. And I think there's, I don't care what anybody says, it's probably the most magical thing in the world is to have a child. I love it. And I always have to tell this story about my son because literally we actually picked the time that he was conceived. And then Camille says to me, my wife, she says, well, I'm not, breaking water here, and the doctor says I have to induce. So I said, well, this is perfect. So I got to pick the day he was born. So, and that's again, right to this question. And I said, well, if you can have him on this day, it'll be perfect within this window of time. Because, you can never perfectly time exactly when it's all going to happen. But so that's what she did. She went in and induced. And it got to a point where she had to go C-section. And I said to the doctor, I said, I think let's get this going. See here, she's pushing for like 8 hours, and the window was running out a few hours later. So what was great is they had it set up so that I had an ability to see around the curtain. And I have to tell a little story here. It was pretty cool. I actually have these angelic squares that are believed to protect the soul of a child when they're born. This is really cool stuff because, the ancient legends were that children could have spiritual attachments, and these angelic squares would bring more favorable angelic forces around to protect them. So I did it. And I said to the doctor, you mind if I put these up? He goes, yeah, okay, go ahead. So it was kind of funny. But anyways,
so they were throughout the room. You just put them up.
Well, I put them on the 4 walls in the delivery room. I put them on the 4 walls. So I'm sitting there, back to the story, I'm sitting there and I'm seeing around the tent, right? And they opened her up and I'm like, wow, this is pretty graphic. Pull the child out. There's all this fluid and, the umbilical cord and everything. So, and I didn't expect this. And I love to tell this story. Literally, right when he cried, I saw 2 illuminations come in. I did not see any shapes, wings, colors, just 2 like white illuminations right when he cried. And I just went, wow, that story, which is in an ancient text called the Sefer Haggadah, which means the book of the legends of the soul, is really what happened. And literally, I got to see that, the soul is really tied to the body at first breath. So, because I've always heard that legend, I never knew if it was true. And I can tell you, my opinion is absolutely true. And I felt afterwards, just like an illumination in the room. It was just magical. Mm-hmm. I mean, if anybody's ever held a newborn baby, they're magical. I don't care what anybody says. They're like little light bulbs, man, like 10,000.
They're magic. Very magical. Very magical.
I remember the nurse came up and she said, well, he's got to go in the incubator. It's 98.6. And I grabbed him out of her hand. I said, so am I. And he's staying with me. So he did. He slept the entire night with me. I just loved it. It was literally like holding just a glow plug. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's so awesome and it's such a important question, I feel like, because I don't hear people talking about this too much in conjunction with astrology. So I'm really grateful for this question. And I hope that it, helps a lot of people who are considering.
Yeah, it was a great question. I love it. I love that question.
Yeah. Awesome. So this is another one that's going to be short, but really sweet.
Yeah, we want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm so glad we were able to answer these questions. We have a bunch more that we're definitely going to get to, and please keep submitting if you have them. And like Jeff said, have a beautiful Thanksgiving. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we got some surprises coming up too that we're going to launch.
Ooh.
Right. Yeah. Remember that?
He spilled the beans a little bit.
I spilled the beans a little bit. I love it. All right. Well, have a great Thanksgiving, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.